Weird science
is the revolution.
Creature from the Black Lagoon lives. Number 1, written by Dan Waters and Ram V. I want to thank you for having so many Ram V books this week.
You're
Art
welcome.
by Matthew Roberts, Dave Stewart on colors, letters by D.C. Hopkins. And here we go. We have Universal Monsters. We have the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I am not a huge Universal Monster fan. I would say that the only thing that I like about the Creature from the Black Lagoon is his look. Don't really care much for him, and I think he's one of the boringest monsters there are. And he looks cool on the cover, right? He's on the cover.
He's on the cover.
And you kind of get it. I didn't even think until right when we were about to record. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I get it. You know, Ram V, he did the swamp thing. And then here's the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I'll tell you, if you're into this to see the Creature from the Black Lagoon, you may be a little bit disappointed. This issue, you see him on the cover, just soak it in, because you don't get much Creature from the Black Lagoon. The problem I have with Ram V and Dan Waters, and I know that a lot of people like them, my problem actually is their pacing of stories, and they try to get a little too fancy, more Ram V than Dan Waters, but still. And the idea of, you know, what they're going to do. But when I think about it again, the idea of what are you going to do with a Creature from the Black Lagoon, I don't think we're just going to have issue after issue of him swimming around, you know, doing nothing. You're going to have some other point of view character, and that's what they end up doing. I just expected a little more Creature from the Black Lagoon, but we'll see how this continues on. You end up starting with what is the kind of the main character, Kate Marston. She is a reporter. Man, you were talking beforehand. She is on the case of a serial killer that seemed to try to get her at one point. She escaped it, but in the meantime, she's seeking him out and trying to take him down. He's gone off to Peru, is where she gets some info. And her editor at one point, one of the big, you know, lines of it is, why are you going and trying to find the guy? If you find him, he's going to finish the job. And she kind of understands that. She has PTSD. She's popping pills. I don't feel that she's very likable, but I don't know that she's supposed to be. But you said something to me even before, you know, days ago when we got the review copy for this, the idea that anybody is going to try to convince anybody that drowning is a great way to go. I don't get it.
You're full of crap.
Yeah, you're full of crap. She actually says they're full of crap. I don't get it. I think it's to set up maybe something later or whatever. But I mean, burning might be the worst. I think drowning is right up there, though. It's got to be horrible because they even say, as she's saying it, your body's being deprived of oxygen, but it's trying to desperately survive. So you're trying to breathe where you can't, and that's just awful stuff. Yeah. So she ends up, she has problems. She has, you know, nightmares. You see right away that she's out of, you know, amphetamines. She's got, you know, uppers that's because she doesn't want to sleep. It's almost like the Freddy Kruegers in town, but instead it's the serial killer, which you kind of get this throughout this issue, but it's very, you know, it's methodically paced. It's what happened is Dan Waters and Ram V, they're not going to just say in a narration right away, hey, this is what's going on. They do actually let you see instead of tell, which that's not usually Ram V's way. So I do appreciate it. Maybe the two of them together have like a cool little thing. And even through the art where you see that, yeah, it looks like there's some, you know, monster worshipping in this town in Peru because you see these little figures people make and then somebody.
Little tiki figures.
Yeah, and so she's waiting for this guy. We know that he's a bald guy. We know his name is, I believe, Darwin Collier. And she has set up that if he comes into town, she has some people that might end up alerting her of that. And he seems to come into town to get, you know, drugs and things like that. And also very much serial killer equipment. He's getting disinfectant gauze, the nonsense. But she's on the case, and this pharmacist, or at least the lady that works at the pharmacy, is supposed to let her know, oh, when this guy comes in, can you call me so I can come and check this out? And unfortunately, she didn't get the call and she was sleeping. But she goes, but I'll let you go from there, because she goes in this pharmacy. And again, the individual page-to-page deal is not bad. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm not bored when I'm reading it. It's just by the end, I'm like, hey, you didn't get much from this first issue. But you do set up this whole, you know, Kate going after this Darwin Collier who tried to murder her and seems to be a serial killer, right?
Yeah, so
Kate just goes to the pharmacy and, she talks to the cashier lady, the pharmacist, and she looks at the security footage and she can't quite tell if it's him for sure, but she's like, I trust my gut. I know it's him. And so she's like, well, maybe, it wasn't too long ago. That was an hour or two ago. Maybe he's still in town. So before she leaves, though, she makes sure to get more amphetamines to try and keep herself awake. And as she goes out, she sees that a crowd has gathered. And apparently another victim has drowned due to the river. And so Kate just starts immediately asking around. She talks to this one old lady. And the old lady's like, oh, it is the creature. He does not like to be spoken of. It is why he pulls the breath from their lungs and fills them back up with blood, black mud from the river. And Kate's like, right.
Yeah, and then the place is like, creature.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, the serial killer. But then you have, I don't want to say primitive, but you have superstitious folk who are not, and again, that's the perfect foil for a serial killer who drowns people, that there seems to be a made up, and I'm putting in air quotes because in the roundabout deal, we know there is a creature from the Black Lagoon. So it's kind of that weird, twist here. But she's like, oh, I get it. Like, he's here. He could drown whoever he wants, because the idea is, the creature, the river takes what it wants. And even the idea where they're not upset about this body that they're like, oh, the creature must have decided to take him. She's like, yeah, right. So she goes into the where they're doing what's the mortician, or actually the morgue. Why couldn't I figure to say
I don't know
the morgue? So, and talks to this guy, and she's obviously bribed him before, but somebody else has bribed him more. He won't reveal this. She thinks it's this Collier, possibly, getting a trophy for what he did or whatnot, but it ends up that it's somebody else. She ends up following these guys who got the body and ended up finding out it's not this Darwin Collier, it's somebody else. And she's confused. But at that point, she's in the middle of the swamp. I mean, she's in the thick of it here. And in this weird play where she sees this fish almost get killed by, she's like, I wish I was like you, fish. You almost died, but you forget about it. You just keep going on your day. And then the next thing you know, she's like in the, it's so crazy. She's there and she sees the creature from the Black Lagoon. She ends up like, who are you? She goes to fight, but she falls into the river. And it looks like she's going to drown, but the creature saves her and brings her up. And you have that idea of, as she's coming to and going, she's seeing the face of this Darwin Collier, the serial killer, but it's actually the creature from the Black Lagoon that looks, very concerned for her. And it's very odd.
She almost drowns. He saves her, and he stands over her body. That's how it
what
ends.
What I learned in this #1 issue, and the art is really good. I really do like the art. And it goes pretty quick. One of the things that I have an issue with sometimes with Ramsey and even Dan Waters is over narration, and it really is a slog for me to get through. At least it's not like that in here. You let the art do a lot of the work. The panels, there's a lot of full pages, a lot of big panels, and the colors are great too. So I do like that. But in this, you meet Kate Marston. She likes to take amphetamines because she doesn't want to have the nightmares of a serial killer. She's, going and trying to track down. I don't know what she thinks she's going to do. She has a gun. I don't really know what she thinks she's going to do when she finds him. Maybe just kill him straight up. But she ends up going and following a body, falls in the river. Creature from the Black Lagoon in the end. And so I was kind of like, oh, there wasn't much to that. Also, I thought it was oversized. It is a bit. But there's a lot of extra stuff in the back as well. I thought that, we were only at halfway through and it was over. So what would you give it?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more positive with this one. I think I'm going to go a 7.5 with this because I have a little bit more interest because it's a universal monster. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, it's just not a whole heck of a lot happens. Like, yeah, we get a character to focus on. It's like, okay, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, like you said, she's not very likable. I mean, you're supposed to sympathize.
She's realistic, but not very likable.
She's very jaded.
Yeah. And also you're just like thrown in. It's the idea where you're there. She's getting up from a nightmare, wants to go get drugs, whatever you figure that. But, she doesn't even seem very nice overall. She has a nice conversation with, I guess, Maria is the lady's name.
Yeah, the pharmacist.
At the pharmacy, but she seems like she's kind of using me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like if I'm going to read a Creature from the Black Lagoon book, I'm thinking of Kate Marston. Obviously, I wouldn't. But what is the Creature from the Black? Like I said, what is he going to do?
Yeah.
Most of the other creatures and the universal monsters, Frankenstein would be a bit of a problem if they were get to him as well, because what does he do on his own? You kind of need somebody with him, but it was a weird play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go 7.5 as well, though.
Yeah.
As we were going through, it's very quick.
Yeah.
It looks great, though. And
Yeah,
I'm interested. It's one of those where at the end, I'm like, I'm interested to see the next issue, mainly because I just want to see how they're going to play the interaction between the creature from the Black Lagoon and this Kate. All of a sudden, she wakes up completely, and he's like, hey, what up?
Is he gonna be entranced with her? Like, is this like a Kong situation?
Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna do it, but I want to see that. And obviously, you would then set up that the creature would, maybe eventually get the serial killer, or maybe not. Maybe who knows? Maybe he's the serial killer transformed. I don't think.
I
so,
hope
but
not.
That'd be so crazy. But there they are, and he might be in love with her, as often happens in these kind of stories. But with that, that's...
It was beauty that killed the beast from the lagoon.
Yeah. It might have been in the lagoon of its... I can't even call that a lagoon. It's just more of a river or swamp. The creature from the Black River, it seemed. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But it was good enough for me to... we'll check it out next month. We'll see how
definitely.
Weird science
is the revolution.